You're recording.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. We'll have our first session today, uh, getting actual into the weeds, into the actual text with Surah Fatiha. And for that, I'll share my screen. Now, as for the resources that we'll be using, a lot of it is very accessible. What I'll do is I'll first share my screen, and what you see is this like chart of Arabic letters. So I'll refer to this if you have any questions, because some of the letters look different depending on where they are in the word. Uh, so we'll go back to this chart if necessary. But the main resource that we'll be using today is Quran.com. And I'm actually very impressed now that I look into what is like the various like resources on Quran.com. So
It's me.
so Quran.com, very accessible website. Uh, and then we're on chapter 1, Surah
It's
Fatiha.
me.
Wonderful. So what we see here is like the Quran.com, it provides the Arabic and then provides a translation. Now you can hover over the Arabic words and you can see the meaning. If you press it,
Me.
you get the sound of the words. So that really helps with if you're a first time learner trying to like figure out what the meanings are, what the like what the sounds are, if you're just like have some questions. Now, now the nice thing about Quran.com is that we have multiple settings. So the first, if you go to the setting tab up here, you'll see different Quran fonts. One is called Uthmani and one is Indo-Pak. Now, there are two major Quran conventions or writing conventions that are out there. So if you pick up a Quran, depending on where you are, depending on you know where the Quran was published or printed, it might have one of these two different styles. One is the Uthmani, which is the style that often is associated with printing presses in the Arab world, printing presses out of Egypt, printing presses out of Saudi Arabia. So this has become a very common convention. And then the Indo-Pak with many Muslims from the Indian subcontinent, uh, like a lot of the Qurans are in that style. To be honest, looking over the two different Quran styles, the Indo-Pak one is one of the, I would say, a better beginner style, because the Indo-Pak convention was sort of made for individuals for whom Arabic isn't the initial language, the native language. So what we'll do in this session is that we'll focus starting with the Indo-Pak convention. But what I'll do also is that I'll open another Quran.com tab, and I'll put that on the Uthmani style, so that when we go through a word, if there's any differences in the convention, we can flip back to it and see where the differences are. And it seems that the Uthmani Hafs is a very clear style of that. So just a moment, how do I minimize? Okay. So we'll focus on this like Indo-Pak style, but then if there's any differences, I'll go back to the Uthmani style to point out those differences. Now, another cool like aspect on Quran.com, if you go down on the settings, you can press these word by word options, translation and transliteration. So translation puts under each word a approximate translation, and then transliteration, how it's pronounced, sort of to help you do that. And then there are multiple translations here. We'll just have what their default is, Mustafa, whatever that is. And then, those are the main things. So we'll flip between these two. Any questions there? Any questions there? Or okay, wonderful. Wonderful. So we'll begin with Surah Fatiha. As you know, the Quran often starts.
Sure.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So our first step is to read it, and then we'll talk about the meaning. So this is the first word. If you press it,
Bismi.
Bismi. Now let's read it. So this is the first letter with a dot below. That's the ba. The bi, the mnemonic is with a dot below. With a line underneath is the vowel for E. So this is B. B. And then you have this letter, S. This is a scene, triple tooth with this like 7, with this like little mark, which means that you stop on that consonant. So you have bis, bis. And then finally, this is the meme with a line below. For the meme makes the m sound with the line below to make me. So bismi, bismi. All right. And if you look at the Uthmani script, it looks very similar. The line with the dot below, bi, and then the triple tooth with this symbol, and then the meme, and here the tail like goes down. It's helpful to see different like Arabic scripts because the Arabic script is very, calligraphic, and you can take like options with the different scripts. So here the line goes below. Here it's just like coming out to the side. So bismi means in the name, as you see here, in the name. Now bi is a preposition, so it means in. Bi, bifadlillah, in the grace of God. Bi is a preposition that attaches to the word that its direct object. And the object of bi is ism, or this is a name. In Arabic, you could say, ma ismuk, what's your name? So ism is the name, all right? So bismi, altogether, in the name. Now you might ask, why is it I at the end of the word? And sometimes you'll find in Arabic, Quranic Arabic, different endings to different words. So you'll have, sometimes you'll read, Allahu la ilaha illallah. Allahu la ilaha illahu. So the ending of Allah is U. And then in another place you'll read, Inna Allaha wa malaikatuhu, or, Inna Allaha. There's an A at the end of the word, of the word. And then here you say, Bismillahi. So why are there different like vowels at the end of each particular word, the same word? And the reason is in Arabic, Quranic Arabic, there are three cases. Cases are how a noun is used in a particular sentence, or a noun or a particular word is used in a particular sentence. Now, Quranic Arabic has 3 cases, and those are marked by the 3 vowels. And there are other languages with a lot more, like Greek has like 4, classical Greek has 4, Latin has like 6, Sanskrit has up to 8 cases. So Arabic is pretty not too bad with regards to that. But the I case, what we call the genitive, is is attached to words if they're the object of a preposition. So every time you have a preposition, you'll have the ending of the word, if it's a singular word, I, with this I sound. Any questions there? So you have bismi, all right? Unfortunately, I can't see everyone. So if anyone has questions, just shout it out, All right. So then we get the next word. This is a very like familiar like symbol that you might see in Muslim spaces. This curvature. This is the word Allah. Okay. So Allah, you see here, the first like letter is an alif, and then a lam, and then another lam, and then a ha. This is a ha at the end of a word. The word Allah is often considered linguistically as a contraction of the word alif lam, which is in Arabic the definite article, al. That means the. So the house, al bayt, the book, al kitab. You have the word al, and then lam ha is a contraction of the word ilah, or God. So so if you were to say the God, you would say al ilah, but that contracts to Allah, the God. And So it's a very pretty simple word for just God in general. Now, what you'll see is that the aleph does not have a mark on it. It doesn't have like a line underneath it. It doesn't have a line above it or a u sound. It doesn't have any vowel on it right here. That indicates that this aleph, what happens is the aleph of al doesn't normally have a vowel sound or the ah sound unless it's the beginning of, you're just like starting the word. Otherwise, it connects with the vowel behind it. So here, bismi ends in the I vowel, and then you have this liaison that connects on. And in order to indicate that, it shows that the aleph, like in this Indo-Pak script, the aleph just doesn't have anything on it. It means ignore it. This is where the vowel from before, the bismi, the ending, that's what connects on. So you have nothing on this aleph. And then as you see, the al merges with the la. So you have Allah. The al, the two L's sort of merge together. And in order to indicate that, you have the first lam is not marked with anything. So you don't see anything on top of it or below it. And then the second lam is like doubled. So that you have this sign, this is called the shadda. It doubles this lam, okay? So you have Allah, you have this doubling of the L, which is when these two lams merge together. And then you'll find that in Arabic, there's a lot of words, like Arabic is mostly a consonantal text. So not all vowels, like short vowels aren't represented. And then a lot of long vowels are often not represented in the text. So in order to indicate that, you see this symbol, which is an upright line. And this indicates a long sound. So Bismillah, and then the ha has an e on the end. Bismillahi.
Adnan, is there a name for the long Is it
so this is where my lack of formal training.
Okay, no.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Is that the dagger aleph?
The dagger aleph, yeah.
Khanjar, yeah.
Yeah. So but you'll find this in the Indo-Pak script, this dagger aleph, meaning for the long and you see this also in the word ilah. It's just spelled with lam ha, but it has a dagger aleph in it. So again, why is it ending with the I ending? In Arabic, in order to make possession, all you have to do is put a noun, the possessing noun, right after the noun it possesses. So we're talking about the name of God. So God possesses the name. And the possessing noun takes the genitive E ending again. So always when you see like a noun clause where you have one noun and then the second noun, you don't need a preposition between them. In English, we say in the name of God. But in Arabic, you don't need to say the word of. You just put the word after the noun it possesses and then put the E ending at the end of it. So say, any other examples of that? Baitullahi. Whatever the case of the beginning word is, it's the house of God. Baitullahi. You'd have the I ending on it. Okay? Any questions there? Now, this is where we'll see a difference between the
one question, Adnan. Now, we don't say Bismillahi, we say Bismillah usually. Okay, so yeah. Why is the he not pronounced then?
So in Arabic, the cases are only pronounced within the word, within the sentence, if you're continuing on with the sentence. At the end of a phrase or a sentence, you often drop the last syllable. So here, if you just ended Bismillah, in the name of God, you would say Bismillah, and then you would drop this last syllable, even though you're still writing it. You'll still write the last syllable on there, but because you're stopping at that point, you drop that last syllable. Yeah. So you can say Bismillah.
Can Can I point something out as well? So if you're just looking at the word Allah on its own, is a slightly different sound with Allah, Allah. But because the previous word bismillah, the I is leading into it, you say bismillah. So because it's starting with the I sound, you say illah, bismillah. But on its own, it would be Allah, and there's a slightly different tone to the L. One is like Allah, that Allah, Allah, and or illah, illah. So that's it's going to be flavored just because you're coming in with an I, you pronounce it slightly differently.
So that's a really advanced. A little bit.
But I mean, they're going to hear it here. So Bismillah, in case somebody's wondering that.
Yeah, exactly.
So a little bit weeds too much.
Yeah. So there's like some letters which make velarization, or like the ah sound into an ah sound, and it's unique in the word Allah, in that normally you would say Allah, but in when it's preceded with a ah, so you say Allah, or an u, so kitabullah, the L sound becomes velarized to an ah sound. But not when it's preceded by an E. So you still say Bismillah, Bismillahi. So that's a little bit of an advanced tajweed issue. Right here, we still say Bismillahi. And we'll come, whenever something is too complex, we'll come and we'll see it again, and then we'll pointing out. So don't take it too don't be don't be scared. It'll be okay. We'll see it again. So here is where the Uthmani script is kind of different. In the Uthmani script, you see over the alif, there's this little squiggle thing, right? So when I was a kid and first picked up a Quran in the Uthmani script, I thought these were oohs. So I was like, Bismillah. No, this squiggle is something that comes over alifs that explicitly states that this alif is to be ignored if it's following a vowel, but pronounced if it's the beginning. So it's just explicitly stating that this aleph has a liaison. It's not has a vowel on its own accord, but it pulls in the vowel from before. So Bismillah. And then here you'll see that the Uthmani script doesn't have a dagger aleph. It just has a little short aleph. So you might look at this and think about, I was like, oh, does that say Bismillahi with a short vowel? The reason is that it just assumes that that the word Allah has a long vowel. It just assumes it, so it doesn't. The convention is just to ignore it. So that's why the Indo-Pak script is sometimes more explicit and helpful for beginners, because it doesn't assume that various things. So whenever you see this, even if there's no dagger script, it is a long vowel, Bismillahi. All right. All right. So we'll get to the next word. What is this? This is an aleph again.
Ignored.
Ignored, nothing on it, right? And then again, it's a lam. And again, the lam doesn't have anything in it.
Ignored.
Yeah, there's nothing on it. And why is that? What's this letter here?
Ra.
That's a ra. So the ra has this sound, ra. Now, in Arabic, the al, you find it, it's the definite article. Now, the lam, for certain letters, gets merged into the following letter. So you'll say al-bait, you pronounce the lam. Al-kitab, you pronounce lam. But when it's followed by a ra, that's one of the letters where it merges into the following letter. So you, instead of al-ra, al-rahman, you pronounce it ar-rahman, ar-rahman. And that's indicated by the lam not having anything on it. And then the following letter that it merges into having the shadda. Sort of like same here. So the ra has the shadda on it. So if you start from this word, ar-rah, and then what is this letter?
Ha.
And it has sha, ar-rah, and then this,
Meme.
That's a meme. That's a meme. It's one of the ways of indicating a meme. Here, a meme, the meme has a bigger loop. And here it's just a little loop, but it's still a meme. And then over the meme, you see this dagger aleph. So a long vowel ah. Ar-Rahman and the noon. The noon is a unique sign, like with one dot on top or one dot above the line. And at the end of a word, it has this very beautiful like curvature. So Ar-Rahman, and with the E, Ar-Rahmani. So Ra is also one of these letters that if it's followed by a or a U, it becomes velarized. So instead of saying Ar-Rahman, you say Ar-Rahman, and it becomes ah. So Ar-Rahman. And that's regardless of what letter comes before it. Ar-Rahman. All right? So,
I've got two quick questions. First, can you repeat what you said about the Ra changing? So I didn't quite catch what you were saying. Yeah.
Oh, about the vowel of the
yeah.
So when you have a following certain certain consonants, it becomes like, I think the term is velarized. It becomes like, instead of a, it becomes ah.
Okay.
So here after a ra, the vowel always becomes rahman rather than rahman. You see that slight distinction? It's like a minor point. But
yeah, it makes me think of like, I don't know, the sound like ah, like it sounds very, I don't know, I called it the goat sound when I was in teaching Spanish. It's like ah, it feels very different.
So not Rahman, but rather Rahman.
Rahman. Yeah, Rahman. So the air is going down in your mouth, Rahman, as opposed to pulling it back.
Yeah, it's like, or more open, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Term, but it becomes like an sound. So Ar-Rahman. So all together, our what we read is Bismillahir Rahmani. So it has this liaison between the words. Now, why is Rahman with the E at the end? Because it is a adjective describing Allah. And so it takes the same case. This has an E, this has an E at the end. And Rahman, so you see various translations. Here you see most gracious. This is where, I don't know, I have a point. The word Rahman is from the word Rahma, or originally from the word Raham. And you see the word Raham within the word Rahman. Raham means womb. The womb where like a fetus grows, like the womb of a mother. So that is Raham. Ra-ha-meen. And Rahman is derived from that, or from Raham, you get Rahma, or compassion, or love. And Rahman is an intensive, or thought to be an intensive form of having Rahma. It wasn't a word that was commonly used in Mecca, actually, but rather more commonly used in Southern Arabia by Christians and Jews. So it was considered associated with the monotheistic God of Christians and Jews rather than the pagan God. And what Islam does is sort of bring that into the discourse, that God is Ar-Rahman. And this is a very beautiful concept, the concept of God's compassion that is so intensive that it envelops everything. Rahmati wasiyat kulla shay. That the meaning of the word Rahman versus the following word Rahim, it's thought that Rahman refers to God's compassion, which affects everyone or touches everyone. So it's like a universal compassion, whereas Rahim is beyond that for those who are those who are good. So there's already this universal compassion in the word Rahman, and that's why it's so important to connect with the Quran, the text of the Quran directly, because here you'll see different translations. Most gracious, okay, it sort of lacks the emotional aspect that the word Rahman has. And here you see also, like this person translates most compassionate, but then the next word most merciful, and merciful also, even though the next word Rahim is also derived from that word Rahim, expressing compassion. Merciful might lose a little bit of that emotive quality and have this sense of God, more of this like sense of God, like wanting to punish but holding back, whereas Rahim may have more of the sense of this God's compassion. So it's so important to connect with the texts of the Quran, because then you can pull out these like very emotive, beautiful meanings of the text. Anyone have any questions on that?
Yes, Harun just asked in the chat. Where does Noon come from in Rahman?
Where does the Noon come from in Rahman? That's a complicated question, because it's not a general like thing that you do in Arabic for adjective. Yeah. You don't go around like alim, al-man, as one who is most knowledgeable. But there are some cases of that, like al-ban, when Quran is describing like Moses coming down from the seeing like people worshiping the calf. He's al-ban. He's like enraged. He's like really intensively angry. So Rahman is thought to be somewhat in that vein, but it might be a non-Arabic word, or it might be because it was associated with Southern Arabian or Southern Arabian languages. So it might not be a inherently Arabic formation, but rather related to some formation in other like Semitic languages nearby. Is that a complicated language, Kevin?
I was just going to mention that, one thing that you do is you go through the Quran, you're always trying to look at what the roots are to get the root meaning, like Rahma is, Rahman. So you have a Ra, a Ha, and a Mim, and that's the root. So when you get Rahman, that Nun at the end is not part of the root. That's, it's a grammatical add-on that, perhaps, means it's a more, and it does exist in a number of other words. You have Ju' is hunger. Ju'an is you're very hungry. Atush is thirst. Atshan, I'm thirsty. Rahman, I mean, there are a number of words where that occurs, but as Adnan is saying, it's perhaps an older construction that's shared with some other previous Semitic languages, and it adds a certain flavor to the word that we, as a non-native speaker, we may not totally be aware of, but it's worth pointing out.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like we do, as if you go back to the Hadith tradition, like the natives of Mecca were like, who is Rahman? What's this Rahman that you talk about? They're not familiar to calling God Ar-Rahman. We do have inscriptions from Southern Arabia, from Jewish and Christian sources that use the term Rahmanan in there. So it might have been, a loan from that. It's a little bit of a complicated history. And then also the Hadith, like with regards to its relation to the Rahm, so we think linguistically, you have the Rahm, then you get the concept of Rahma, then somehow from that you get the concept of Rahman. Whereas the Hadith acknowledges that connection, but sort of like reverses the order. There's a Hadith that I am Ar-Rahman and I name the Rahm after me. And there's a powerful Hadith because it's like God is like using this image of the womb as like God's like symbol on earth, and so really playing up like the divine feminine, which sometimes we overlook. All right, and then this last word. I know it's it takes a while to get through each word, but we'll take it step by step. So Alif, Lam, another Ra. These are ignored, and then the Ra is doubled. Ra, and then Ha, the same. And then Ya. This is a Ya, and so the Ha has an E at the end. Rahi. And then when it's followed by a Ya, that means that it's lengthened. So Rahi, Rahi. And in the Indo-Pak script, they do this. They have a mark indicating that it's like a vowel, like a consonant that you stop on. So Rahi, and then the last letter is a meme, sort of like this meme with the E at the end. Rahimi. All right, Ar-Rahim, and that means just your normal word for being compassionate. So it's so significant that the concept of compassion is doubled here. That's why when I like do the translation of Fatiha, I often do, in the name of God, the all compassionate, expressing the universal aspect of Rahman, and then the compassionate. And I know it sounds clunky to repeat compassion, but that's what the Arabic is doing, really stressing that.
So I think sometimes I'll see it, I think it's just a different way of saying what you're saying, but that Rahman is like general, all-inclusive, universal, and Rahim is the particularly, it's maybe it's to you individually, or it's a specific, it's focused or specific. So the generally compassionate, and then the specifically, particularly.
Right.
And they both have ar before them, so that's the most compassionate and the kind of most merciful.
And that's sort of like, in Arabic, like in order to have adjectives after a noun, then the adjectives follow the noun and they take the same case. So both of these words have the same case of Allah, and they take the same, because Allah is definite with the al, the adjectives also have a definite al and al. And because of that, you could read this as in the name of the all-compassionate, most compassionate God. That's a legitimate way to parse it. Or you can read it in the name of God, the all-compassionate, compassionate. All right? And then because it's the last, did anyone have a question?
Yeah, really quick, sorry to interrupt. I thought that I was gonna say it in Arabic. I thought that the mudaf ilay didn't take like the al in front of it, right? Why is there an al in front of Allah? Because it's like the
mudaf ilay.
Yeah.
Say that again.
Like the
So if ism ilah, if for genitive construction you start with a noun that's the possessor, and then the noun that comes after it is the thing that is possessed. So ism of God, it's in the name of God. What he's saying is usually it doesn't have the article, like
exactly.
Beit Muhammad or
so that's a good point. The ism doesn't have in a construct where you have something that's possessed and then the possessor. The thing that is possessed does not have the article. So you don't say bil ism in the name. You don't say bil ism. But the word that is possessing, that will have the article or the indefinite article. So here this phrase is in the name of God. So it's in the name of God, but you don't put the article on the ism. You don't say bil ism, Allah, but the word Allah does have the article. And we'll see that later when we go down to this verse. Why is Rabbi without an article, but Alameen has the article? So Allah, and then these words are like adjectives that describes Allah. So they take the same case and the same definitiveness with al after it. Okay. Yeah. And then finally, like because it's the end of a phrase, you can drop this last. In pronouncing it, you drop the last vowel. And that I would encourage you to do that because that brings out the rhyme of the Quranic text. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Like normally you'd say Rahimi, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And in Tajweed, you can extend that vowel a little bit at the end of the word. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in order to really pull out the rhyme. Any questions?
Yeah, I do have a question. So you said that we drop the vowel if it's at the end of like that phrase. Would it be fair to say that would typically be when we have like ayah 1, ayah 2? Because otherwise I'm not going to really know when it's the end of the phrase because I don't know the grammar. Or is that correct, or is there something else that would be helpful?
Yeah, the end of the phrase is often when you see like the end of the ayah.
Yeah.
Or you see like sometimes there'll be other stop signs like that I'll point out as we read, but the main stop is the end of the ayah. And there's other like we'll come across them. When we come across them, we'll talk about those particular stops. Those are little teeny letters that you'll see.
Yeah, I've seen like a tiny gene before.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll come across those.
As you listen to different readers, there is some stylistic variation. It can be what you choose. So for us ranked beginners, we're probably always going to stop at the end of an ayah. and catch our breath and get ready to say the next one. But if you're a reader, you may decide to do 2 ayahs in one breath, and they might say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillah. They might pronounce it because they're doing 2 ayahs at once, and that's a stylistic variation that is probably more advanced.
Okay, cool. But that's helpful because then I'll know what to kind of look out for if I'm listening. Perfect. Thank you both.
And then if we just like go back to the Uthmani script, as you see the differences here on the alifs, there's that little squiggle that shows that this is a alif that you can ignore. The lam doesn't have anything on it like the other text. So Rahman. Now in the Indo-Pak script, you have the dagger alif. It's pretty efficient. It's just like one symbol here. In the Uthmani script, what they do is they do the ha, the meme, and here you have the loop of the meme. And you have the meme has this haraka, this ah sound, and then it has another one. The ah sound is just a vowel, and then this dagger indicates that it's lengthened. So in the Uthmani script, you'll have this doubling of these signs in order to lengthen it, whereas the Indo-Pak script is just much more efficient in expressing that. It just has like the dagger. So that's just one difference. And then Rahim, it doesn't put the little like stop on the yeah. It just assumes that you read it as a long yeah. So it can be annoying if you're familiar with one of the conventions versus the other. They're saying the same things, they're expressing the same things, but it's just good to know. But that's sort of why I like, if you're a beginner, sometimes the Indo-Pak is much more easier to read. All right, well, we'll go through, I know it takes a long while to read through one, but it'll come faster. And I think we've had some good discussions so far.
I'm just putting this out there. We've done an ayah now, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. At some point, do we want anybody to, take a shot at saying that ayah, or I'm not sure at what point we want to do that. It's up to you, but
Yeah. Would anyone want to try practicing?
Can I do it?
Definitely.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Wonderful, wonderful. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Anyone else? No pressure. We'll go through.
Oh, I was gonna say I can do it, and then I feel like Andrew.
Okay, sure.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Wonderful, wonderful. And then Andrew?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Wonderful. All right. So we'll go on to the next verse. And then here you see the alif. And now the alif has a line above it. That's because it's not preceded by anything in this verse. So you do pronounce it as ah. And then you have the lam, and the lam has this like stop on it. That's because here you do pronounce the lam. So you hear this word does begin with the al that you actually hear. And then this is the ha with the ah sound. Alham, the meme with a stop. And this is a dal at the end of a word. Dal, alhamdu, alhamdu, alhamdu. Okay? Why is it a u sound at the end? That's the other case. So we've talked about the genitive case, where it's the object of a preposition or a possessing noun. And then the nominative case, the u, comes in like often used for subjects of the sentence. So the main subject, and alhamdu means praise or thanks. All praise and thanks. So alhamdu, we're starting the sentence with that subject. All right. Now, if you see the Uthmani script here, look, there's that squiggle. So the thing about the Uthmani script is that it assumes that it's the same squiggle up here. It doesn't mark out the alif. It assumes that you know that if you're starting the word without anything behind it, you make the ah sound. But if not, if you do have that, if you do want to connect it, you take this vowel from before. So you'd say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim Hamdu. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So you won't see the alif on there, or you won't see the asan on here. And then also look at this like variation. The lam comes down and connects to the top of the ha, and then has this loop, and the dal is a little more open. But these are all like general variations of script. So it's helpful to see how this word is written and then how this word is written. It's the same word. It's just like variation in like handwriting. So the lam here connects to the bottom. The lam here connects to the top, but it's the same. All right. Any questions there?
So Adnan, the differences in how it's being written, is that just stylistic?
Stylistic, totally.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, totally stylistic. And that can be complicated because you're,
there's
already
the different things to learn, like with the beginning or front. So okay, cool. Thank you for pointing that out, though. It's helpful to just, I guess, kind of call it out.
Yeah.
Recognize it.
It is like, like with other languages, there's kind of like a more formal print variety, and then there's more like cursive ways that you make the letters flow together a little bit more. And sometimes, those kind of cursive things will make their way into formal written fonts or scripts.
Yeah. So alhamdu. And then we have this word, like you've seen this symbol up here, but except it doesn't have the aleph on the beginning, but rather it has like under the lam, it has like a little vowel here. So the word, this is lillahi. So if you read it, you have the lam with a e under it, li, and then the second lam has a double, lillah, with a dagger aleph for lengthening, and then the ha with the e, lillahi. Lillahi, li is a preposition to something, like or belonging to something. So li is a preposition. Now in Arabic script, in order to put the li on a word, say a word like ar-Rahman, what you do is you drop the aleph and then you add the li, the lam, right at the beginning of the word. So you'll see two lams, lil-Rahman. If you do that with the word Allah, if you drop the aleph and put the lam on it and connect it to the word, you'll actually have a word with three lams. So you have lam, 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 ha. But that's like a little redundant. So in order, like the normal script is to just like, because one of the lams is ignored anyway, you write it with just two lams. So when you see like this symbol without the aleph, it's lillah, lillahi. Alhamdulillahi, meaning praise is to God. Praise to God. All right. And then the differences here, you see the Allah, like it assumes that that the long in the Uthmani script, it assumes that that the vowel is lengthened, lillahi, even though it doesn't write it out. All right, and then what is this word? This is a ra, and then here's the letter ba with one dot below. And you have doubling of the ba. And so Rabbi. Why does it end in an E sound? Because lillahi, so Rabbi means Lord. So because it's talking about God, which is in the I sound, because it's the object of a preposition. So the preposition is li. So lillahi will have to be in the I sound. And then because we're talking about God, the same word, then Rabbi will also be in the I case. So Rabbi, Lord, or sustainer. Rabbi irhamhuma kama rabbayani sagira. Like, take my sustainer, take care of my parents as they have taken care of me when I was young, right?
My favorite derivation, I forget which word it is, but there's something related to Rab, that is when the mother bird puts the little baby bird underneath her wing. It gives that sort of, I thought that was beautiful. But nice. It's Lord is this kind of, when things are translated as Lord, that kind of has a feudal command sort of connotation in English, a feudal lord, and it's much more nurturing and sustaining in Arabic. There's a different connotation to the word.
Right. All right, so Rabbi, and then the next word is, you see, I have this aleph without anything on it, and then the lam. And then this letter, what's this letter?
The ayn.
The ayn. That's the ayn. That's the ayn in the middle position. And you have the dagger aleph on it. So it's ah. So it's a complicated, it's from the back of your throat. Ah. And ayn is one of the letters that doesn't merge with the lam. So you do say al-ah, right? Al-ah, and then here you have a lam, la, and then the meme, e, al-alamin, and then the ya. This is the tooth of the ya with the two dots below, and the stop on it. Alamina, the noon with the aleph, the a sound. Alamina. So so what is alamin? Alamin means the worlds, right? But alamin is where we're introducing plural words. The singular word is al-alam. Alam means a world. Okay? And in order to make something plural, if it is in the genitive case, or the other case that we we mentioned briefly, we haven't seen yet, the accusative case. And if it's masculine, whatever, like grammatical gender masculine, the plural is ina, at the end of it, okay? So once again, remember, this is a construct phrase. So this is Lord of the worlds. The first, you just have to connect it together. And then the second word takes the genitive case. And remember, we were talking about the genitive case having this E sound, but in the plural, it becomes ina. So Rabbil Alamina, it means the worlds, plural, okay? And why does the Rab not have any al? You say it's the Lord, the sustainer of the worlds, because it's the possessed thing. The al only comes in the last word of a construct. So Lord of the worlds, that last word has the al, or the definite article, or the indefinite marker, which we touched upon before. It's the nunation, the double letters at the end. But the thing that is possessed, well, I don't know if you could say possessed, but the Lord of something, like that word does not have any indefinite marker or al connected to it. Okay? Any questions there?
No.
And looking over at how this looks, very similar. Rabbi, here the squiggle over the aleph, and then the lam, and then the ah, and once again in this Uthmanic script, the redundancy, the ah sound, and then the dagger aleph after it. So alamina. And then once again, because it's the end of a phrase, you drop the last vowel. So Rabbil Alameen, pulling out the rhyme of the chapter. Any questions there?
No.
Would anyone want to recite that first?
Can I go ahead?
Definitely, please.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.
Wonderful, beautiful. And what you did there at the end, extending that last vowel. That's a part of tajweed that you can do at the end of a phrase or a sentence. So wonderful. Anyone else?
We'll give it a try.
Okay.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.
Wonderful.
And what does it mean where you have a circle and then it looks like it's the end of the ayah and then there's something above it that's small, it's like a subscript.
So the circle indicates the end of the verse.
Right.
And then inside in the South Asian script, they will have the verse numbers within the circle. And then the symbol above is like a suggestion of how to stop or whether to stop, or you can generally ignore it.
Okay.
But you can generally ignore it. But the la is generally referring to don't stop here. But
Okay.
because it is a stop, it's like a suggestion. It's like you don't have to stop here. It's like
an optional comma.
An optional comma. So some people would recite Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahimi Maliki Yawmiddin because it has a la on it. But honestly, it's just when it comes at on top of an actual verse stop, it's just a suggestion. And the annoying part is that the verse numbers are different between different like scripts. So here, Bismillah doesn't have a verse number, and Alameen is verse number 1. You look here, Bismillah is written as verse number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rabbil Alameen, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen is verse number 2. So it's one of the annoyances, like the variation in like conventions between.
Well, it's actually, I mean, there's some discussion of, is that Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, is that part of the Quran, or is that what we say before we start to read the Quran? Yeah. And there's two opinions on that. Some people say, no, that's actually part of the Quran, that Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And other people will say that, no, it's just like that's what you say before you read the Quran, and then it starts with Alhamdulillah. So it's right. different opinions,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then I see that there's a te, right? So if we go down a little bit more, the small little sign. So we don't have that alif la. So does that mean, it looks different. So I'm assuming it means something different. Maybe like, hey, this is a good spot to stop.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it means. This is a recommended stop here.
A recommended stop.
So the ta is often a recommended stop in the South Asian script.
Right.
And then in the Uthmani, they have different letters. It's kind of you have the jeen you mentioned, or the qa, like solid, and it's different letters. So
thanks.
Regardless, it's suggesting like stops here and there. So here, yeah, we'll come across it, and I'm glad you're like asking the questions. It can be complicated. So here we have a repetition of words that we've seen before. What is this word?
Ra.
Rahman, right? The same word we've seen up here.
Right.
Ar-Rahman and then Ar-Rahim. So it's a beautiful part of Surah Fatiha that it doubles down, it repeats that concept of God's compassion, God's universal compassion, and multiple times in the chapter. We'll see that here, Rahman and Rahim. Okay. Then the next verse. What is this?
Meme.
Meme with a dagger aleph on it.
Right.
Ma. Lam with a I on it. And then this is a kaf at the end of a word. Maliki. Maliki. Maliki means owner or controller, right? Maliki. If you see that in here, you have that redundancy. The meme with the line and the aleph after it. Maliki. Maliki, owner. And then what's this word? Yeah. Yeah. And then this wow has this stop on it. So it's yao.
Yao.
And then this meme with the i. So why does Maliki have the I? Because it's following on, it's referring to God, who's mentioned first here. And because his praise is to God, is the object of a preposition. So it takes the I, the genitive case. So Rabbi takes the genitive case. Ar-Rahman takes the genitive case. Rahim takes the genitive case. Maliki also takes the genitive case. All of it is referring to that first expression of God. All praises to God, sustainer of the worlds, the all-compassionate, the ever-compassionate, owner of the day of judges. So everything is in the same case. with the Maliki. And then Yawm. Yawm. So this is a triple construct. Yawm means day, right? And then what's this word? Lam, but nothing's on the lam. And then this letter?
Dal.
That's a dal. That's and you see that dal is doubled. So dal is another letter like the ra and the lam, where instead of saying al-din, you say ad-din. Ad-din. The lam merged into the dal. Ad-din. And so ya, and then the noon, right? Ad-din. And this is a triple constant. It's the triple construct. Owner of the day of judgment. Deen is payment of debts. Owner of the day of judgment. So it's a triple, three words in line together. Now, Yaumi, because it's of the day, Yaumi is in the genitive case as well. And of judgment, Deen is also in the genitive case. But the only word that has the al is the last word again. Everything that is possessed, or like, I don't know if that's the right term, but possessed, like the thing that that comes first, like none of it has the al. So even though you might in English say the owner of the day of judgment, the al is only on the last word. Okay? And then because deen, deeni, but because it's the end, you end on it, deen. Would anyone want to recite that?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Can I?
Yeah, definitely.
Maliki yawmiddin.
Beautiful, beautiful. Maliki yawmiddin. Anyone else?
Can I recite the whole thing?
Sure.
Sure.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
Beautiful. As you see in that recitation, the verses, like despite like whatever the grammar is, the verses like end in that long e sound, and thus there's that rhyme that comes out. But whatever the last vowel is, you drop that, but you have that ending een ending. Wonderful. All right. So this is our next verse. Iyaka. What is this letter with a line on it? E. And then this is 2 dots below. Yeah. And then a doubling of this. Yeah. And because it's followed by the aleph here, you lengthen it. Yeah. And this is what?
Yes.
Yaka. So iya is an interesting word because it allows you to have flexibility in where you put the object of a word. This next word is not, well, let's read this next word. What is this word? This letter? Na. That's the noon, right?
Right.
So na with the line above. And then this letter is the ayn again with a stop. So na. And then the dot below, bu, with a u sound, and the dal with a u sound. Iyaka na'budu. Now, normally in Arabic, the object of a verb, so na'budu is a verb. Na'budu means we worship. We worship. Na'budu is a present day word, so the first syllable shows like the actor. Na'budu is we worship. A'budu is I worship. Ta'budu, you worship or she worships. There's like a little bit of a like ambiguity there. Ta'budu. you worship, or she worships, or yabudu, he worships, right? So the first, in a present day verb, the first vowel is the actor, nabudu. And then the object pronoun often comes at the end. If I say, we worship you, nabuduka, nabuduka. Ka is the object pronoun for you. But how do you change the order? If I want to do emphasis on you, in English we say you we worship. You know, by putting the you first, it sort of puts emphasis, like this natural emphasis on the you. How do you change that order? That's what the iya comes in. So the iya allows you to break the object pronoun, nabuduka. It could break off from the verb and come somewhere else in the sentence. So here, iyaka na'budu. You we worship. So it's a natural emphasis on putting that object before the verb. Iyaka na'budu. Any questions there? And you'll see that same here in the Uthmani script, except here you see this symbol. This is a hamza. So in the South Asian script, it doesn't normally put the hamza. Here, this aleph is different from the other alephs that you've seen so far. In these alephs, these are alephs that are marked for taking the vowel from before. Iya has its own independent vowel. And so that's why the hamza is put under here to indicate that it's regardless of what comes before it, even if it's like Malik Yawmiddini, you would always pronounce that iya as an independent vowel rather than pulling on the vowel from before. Any questions there?
I did have a quick comment that I thought was, so when I remember, I always thought that iya was like a separate word, because normally you'd say ka is like you, but iyaka is just one word. It's just that is the form if you want it to be sort of the subject form of it. So the iya is, so for instance, if it were more than one, it would be iyakum, for example, right? So that's just a quick call out. I always thought, the first time I thought, what is this preposition? But no, it's not. It's just part of the word.
Yeah, it marks out the direct object, but allows that object, you could put it anywhere. Or you could say, La na'budu illa iya. Like, we don't worship except you. Illa iya. You can't just say, la na'budu illaka, illaka. Though the object pronoun needs that iya just to be its independent thing. So, iyaka na'budu. You, we worship. Wa. So the wa, we're introducing the conjunction wa, and wa is often used as it means and, right? And in the script of Arabic, the convention is that it's attached. It's considered attached to the word that it comes after. So you'll know, technically, wa isn't its own word. It's attached to the word that comes after it. So here you see it all together. Wa, iyaka, same word. And you, what's this word? Na. This is a na. Seen with a stop on it. A ta with a sound. Nasta. The ayn within a sentence with a e. A ya. Nasta'in. And the noon with a u. Yes, nasta'inu. But because it's the end, you can drop that last vowel. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'inu. Nasta'inu is also a verb. It's derived from ista'ana. Now the ista is a prefix that you'll see on some verbs, and it's sort of indicating desiring something or asking for something. Ana is help. This part, ana is help. So ista'ana is to ask for help, right? And iyaka nasta'in means you, we ask for help. What are some other, there's another often said thing that has the ista in it. Anyone come across that? People say astaghfirullah.
Astaghfir, yeah. Isti'adh, istighfar.
Yeah. So what is ghafar? Ghafar is to forgive, right?
Right.
So when one says astaghfirullah, you're saying I seek forgiveness. Astaghfirullah, right? So you see that prefix. All right. Any questions there?
Another question. So do we say that nasta'inu, or do we not because it's at the end? Or we have a break.
If you stop the sentence, you wouldn't say the u.
Okay.
So you say iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, and you can extend that last vowel without and like drop the last u.
Okay. Right. And then if I was going to just go ahead and connect it with what was coming next, then I would need to say the u, just like I would need to say the e if there was an e on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So one could recite iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in nuhdina as-siratal mustaqim. But if you wanted to connect it to the next iyyaka nasta'in nuhdina as-siratal mustaqim, if you wanted to connect it. All right. Yeah, the great questions. Great questions. All right. So here we have, what's this? This is a I. This is a aleph with the I at the end, right? And then what is the letter?
Ha.
Ha. This is a ha at the initial. So we've seen the ha before. Ha is one of those interesting letters that has a very different, it can be confusing because it looks different depending on where it is. Like if you look at these letters, where's the ha? Here. When it's alone, it's like this little triangle, kind of like teardrop thing. At the beginning of a sentence, it's like this loopy. In the middle, it's kind of a loopy thing. And at the end, it has this like, but all of it is like this kind of like a loop. So yeah, that's the ha at the beginning when it begins something, right? So and then the da, dal, di, and then the na, and an aleph that lengthens it normally. So we'd say ihdina, ihdina. So in here, so then we see the difference between the Uthmani script. You see that the I vowel isn't expressed here. Once again, you have the squiggle, okay? So it's the same squiggle as up before. Here you said Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. Here, you're supposed to say Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. But it's the same squiggle.
Yes.
So the thing in Arabic is that the Uthmani script assumes that you know that if you see this alif lam construct, if you have to pronounce it, it's going to be an a. You say Ar-Rahman. And it assumes that if you see it in other cases, when it's a verb, it's going to be an I. So it sort of has this assumption that you know sort of the language already to know what vowel that's supposed to be pronounced as. And sometimes there's a ooh. So that's kind of annoying. So that's another reason why for beginners, the Indo-Pak can be more explicitly stated. But here, yeah, like if you see this symbol without the aleph after, and it seems like it's a verb, then it is the hidden vowel that you would say at the beginning of a sentence is the I. Ihdinas, okay? Any questions there?
No.
Yeah, it's yeah. So next word, what is this? Aleph, lam, right? Not marked. And then what's this letter? This is a new letter we haven't seen today. What's this?
Is it the sub?
This is a sod.
Oh, okay.
Sod.
Yeah, sod. Mm-hmm.
So it's a velarized S sound. Velarized is like more from the back. Sod.
Sod.
And sod is one of those letters that the lam merges into. So instead of al-sirat al-mustaqim, al-sirat, you say as-sirat, 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 and indicate that nothing on the lam and then the double of the letter. Asri with the I, the ra, the sound, and then this lengthened a, and then the ta. What is it? This is ta. So that's a velarized T sound. Ta. Ta. So again, you have with the velarization, you have after you have that ah, the vowel changes from an a to a ah. So sirata, not sirate, sirate, or is sirata. Okay. Now ihdina has a long vowel at the end of it. But when it is followed by a word that has this liaison, you connect it and you drop the long vowel. So you just say ihdinas sirat al-mustaqim. It just connects into it and you don't pronounce it as a long vowel. So you don't say ihdinas sirat al-mustaqim. So ihdinas sirat. Okay. Any questions there?
No.
Now, why is it here? Why is it sirata? Sirata and not sirati or sirapu? Why is it here? So this is where we're introducing the accusative case. There's 3 cases. We've seen so far the I case. And then in the word alhamdu, we saw the nominative case, the u. And here we see the case. Now the accusative case has multiple uses. One of it is the direct object of a sentence. So if you say, I see the house, or I saw the house. Ra'aytul bayta. Bayt would have a at the end. It's the direct object of the sentence. But here, you already have a direct object. Ihdina, guide. Ihdi means guide, and na is us. Okay? So you already have a direct object in this sentence. So there's other uses of the accusative. It can be the topic of a sentence if it comes after inna. So you would say inna Allaha. It's the main topic of a sentence. Or you can use it as meaning by something in a certain way. So if I say dhahabtu layla, I went by night. I went by night. Dhahabtu layla. And that's the way it's being used here. Ihdina, guide us. As-sirata, I guide us by the path. Guide us by the path. All right? Sirata means path. Sirata. Okay? Any questions there?
No.
Again, we touch on more complicated grammar, but sometimes we touch on some complicated grammar, but yeah, if you have any questions, do shout it out. And you see sometimes here, the aleph is expressed as a big aleph. And then here in the Uthmani script, it's expressed as a little aleph. That's sometimes there's different conventions there. So initially in early Arabic, the alephs weren't normally written. And then over time, so you had to express it as a little aleph on the side. And then over time, some scripts have written it as a big aleph. So sirata means by the path. And then what's this word? Alif, lam, right? And this stops here. What is this? There's a meme.
Meme.
Mu.
Mu. Mus.
Mus is stop. Musta. So here we see the qaf. Qaf is a loop with 2 dots over it. So rather than tooth with 2 dots on it, which is a tap, the qaf is a loop with 2 dots over it. Mustaqi. Qaf is from the back of your throat. Mustaqima. Okay? Ihdina sirat al-mustaqima. So this is an adjective for the path. What kind of path? Mustaqima. So it takes the same case because it's in Arabic, the adjective comes after. It takes the same case. And because it's as-sirat, you double up with the al. The same, so it has the al here and the al here because it's definite. and the sirata, the a at the end, and the a at the end. So it matches there. So mustaqima, you sort of hear that same ista prefix. Mustaqim comes from the word istiqama, and it has that. What's that? What did you say? Rukaya, did you say something?
No, I'm sorry. This was my mistake.
Okay, no worries, no worries. So istiqama is like, mustaqima is derived from the verb istiqama, which means like wanting, like this, like seeking to stand. Qama is to stand, right? So istiqama means if you seek to stand, you stand up straight. So the word mustaqim has that meaning.
Before you do that, Adnan, does mustaqim also means stability or a stable path?
I think it could mean that. Yeah.
Straight path.
Straight path. It could mean stable.
Yeah, Shaheen, I've seen that in one of the posts. And Kevin had posted a resource that I've used before where it's the word by word Quran, and I believe that it talked about that it had that meaning, but you could double check that as well.
Thanks, Samantha.
Yeah, and I've seen, when I was looking into it, I saw that seeking, it has that seeking aspect, ista, or seeking, qama, like the rectitude, something that seeks rectitude or seeks to be put aright. So it's sort of like, like something that's stable. Like I think it has more, there's like a cloud of meanings that can come with it. All right. Would anyone want to recite that?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and do it. So, Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim.
Wonderful. Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim.
Mustaqim.
Wonderful, wonderful.
And one thing that I'm noticing when you're reciting Adnan and also Kevin, you're saying the H sound more than what I've done when I've done it, when I've been reading, but I've been reading the transliteration, so it's definitely not the same. So it's interesting, like it's not Ihdina sirat al, it's Ihdinas.
Yeah. Oh, you
like I feel like I'm hearing more of an H in different words than what. Like like there's a like we're actually saying that H sound.
Yeah.
For huda or hada to guide us, that should be the soft H. That's kind of like the normal English H. It's not like it's not the ha and it's not the ha. It's like
right, which are like the letters.
Yeah. So it's the normal. It's pretty much like the normal English H, I think. Ihdina.
But
it sounds different though because it stops. So because there's the sukoon on it, so it's ih. So in English you don't normally have that. I don't think you usually stop on an H.
Yeah, and that would explain why I'm just like, wow, I'm noticing this H. What's going on with
that? Yeah, it's because it's the ih. It stops, and that is a little bit off for an English speaker.
Yeah, but it's beautiful. Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, it's like sometimes you don't recognize it, but English doesn't have those like stops on H regularly.
Yeah, I never thought of that. I just realized as I said it just now. It's like, yeah, we don't do that, do we? So it marks it. It makes it stand out somehow. But it is a regular H. There's no obstruction to the airflow. It's just a ha. It's not a ha, and it's not a ha.
Wonderful.
Perfect. Thank you. The H in myself is happy because it
understands. It's happy, yes. Not happy. It's happy.
Yeah. Wonderful. So we got to the final verse. We're getting through this. Okay. So, okay, let's read this. What's this word?
Sad.
Sad, yeah. Siraba. So this is the same word here. Now, siraba, you're like, oh, so what's the meaning? It says, guide us by the straight path, the path of those. So because it's repeating the path, it has the same case. So this is sirata, this is also sirata, but you might ask, why is it not, there's no al at the beginning of that? Why is there no al? Any thoughts? It's the reason we came across.
Because there isn't one straight path.
It's the, what's
it's
that?
Not deep. It's not the path.
Well, the reason is the grammatical reason we've seen before.
Because you're only going to have one the. You're not going to have the multiple times in the sentence. You'll have at the end.
So these constructs, these concepts, this is the path of something. And when it's a path of something, Lord of the worlds, the first word doesn't have any al on it. Or here, owner of the day of judgment.
Yeah.
The first two words, none of them have al, only the last word. Here, sirapa is the path of, and so you don't have the al. It's the basic like construct form without any al.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we're saying for grammatical purposes, we're saying the possessed and the thing that possesses, but it's not really possession in that sense. It's more just, as you're saying, a grammatical construct, but it could be possession, like the girl's house, Bayt al-Bint, but it's in Arabic, you call it idafa. I'm not sure how you translate that, but it basically, you have, for lack of a better word, I'm saying possessed and the thing that's possessed, although it's not really that. It's a grammatical form.
Yeah.
It shows the relationship.
Right. So that's why there's no I just point it out so that we can get a sense of the grammar. But the grammar makes sense. Yeah. But we can take it step by step. So the path of whom? So this is a word that comes up, alif, lam, but the lam has a doubling, Allah. And then what's this word, this letter?
Dal.
That's a dal. So it's a dal with a dot above it, makes it dal, like the word that. Alladhi with a line on it, ya, and the noon, alladhina. And alladhina refers to, it's like a relative pronoun. It means of those. So sirat al-ladina, the path of those.
Is this sarat al or sarat al-ladina? Is it a ta mixed with the lam?
The ta is mixed with the lam, yeah.
But then there is no sukoon on the lam.
There's no sukoon on the lam, but there is this doubling of the shadda.
So the shadda acts like a sukoon if okay.
Yeah, so the shadda, and even when we've seen the shadda before, it's like a sukoon plus a vowel after it. So sukoon is when it's stop on a vowel. And then the shadda is you stop on it and then you put another vowel after it. So here we say iyaka, right? Or as-sirata. And then here siratal-ladina, right? Siratal-ladina, path of those. And then what is this? This is alif, an. And then this is noon, an, ain, within a word, and amta, right? So this an amta is a verb. Now, when we talked about a verb before, na'budu, that was a present tense verb. And in present tense verbs, the actor is the first syllable. So na'budu, a'budu, ya'budu, ta'budu, those are the ones that change. In past tense, this is a past tense word, an amta. And it's in the form of af'al. So you see the word na'am within it. Na'am means pleasure or happiness. And an'am means to render something pleased or render this on something. And it's similar to aslamta, or like I have rendered myself salam, or at peace with God. I have submitted. Aslamtu. Now that's the form of the verb. So an anta to find pleasure in, and the last in these past tense verbs, it's often the last vowel that has the doer. So an anta, the ta refers to you. An amta, you. If I were to say, I have bestowed pleasure, I would say an amtu with the u at the end. Or if I were to say you and talking to somebody who's a female, I would say I'm ti. Or if it's a group of people, I'm tum. Okay, so that's how that verb is parsed. And amta, and let's look at it here. It's similar, and here they put the hamza here just to express that this is its independent vowel. An anta. Okay. And then what's this next word? What's this consonant?
Ain.
Ain. So this is the ain. We've seen the ain before within a set, in the midst of a word, and it's like this little like loop here. But at the beginning, it has this kind of side. So it looks kind of different, but it is the same letter. So this is ain. A, lam, a, alai, alai, and then this is ya, alai, and then this is a ha. So we've seen the ha before. This is at the beginning, and this is the ha within the midst of a sentence. So alayhi, he, and then the meme, alayhim. So essentially here so far, the path of those whom you have been pleased upon them, right? And in Arabic, in English, like English, we wouldn't repeat the pronoun. We would say the path of those with whom you are pleased. In Arabic, you do repeat the pronoun. The path of those with whom you are pleased upon them. Or so. My cat says hi. All right. Any questions there?
I have a question that's not quite with that, but I was just looking up the different tenses in Arabic because I was just curious. And so it looks like there's just the present, past, and future. And then what I'm reading, and I just want to get a quick idea, was that you can put sa in front of the present. So if I wanted to say, like you talked about na abudu, right, which is present because we have the person at the beginning, the person who's doing it is at the beginning, so na abudu. To have that be future, would that be sa na abudu? Would that structure stay the same?
Perfect, yeah. So the future tense, so in Arabic, in English, we say past, present, future.
Right.
Arabic is technically it's a little different. Like Arabic has like a progressive tense. That means that the action is ongoing, like ongoing. Or it has a completed tense. The action has been completed. So na'budu, we say present, but it's actually saying like it's an ongoing action. Iyyaka na'budu, we continue to worship you.
Yeah, it would be like ing, it'd be like present continuous in English. We are continuing to worship you, or we are worshiping you.
Yeah, versus this is technically Arabic doesn't have a past tense, but rather more a perfected tense, that the action has been completed.
Oh, okay.
So an anta, ale, is like the action has been completed. Now, that comes up later when we read the Quran, because sometimes you'll see the what we think is a past tense for things that are happening in the future. And you're like, wait, this is a past tense verb. No, it's actually a completed tense. So in the future, it's going to be completed. So it can be kind of
and that would be in English. I mean, you have it in English, it's just not necessarily thought about it. It would be like, I will have done.
Exactly.
So it'd be like present perfect.
Yeah. So the Quranic Arabic has just those two. It's not tense. It's like aspect. Aspect is the term. So it's like have done, I will have done, I have done, I had done. That's all expressed with the perfect tense, the perfect aspect in Arabic, and then the continuing action is the like na'budu, or you can make that. So that's why the future is very similar. It's you just add the sanabudu, like
right, because it's like I am going, I will be going.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool, thank you.
So yeah, a little bit, but it's nice to get into the grammar.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm thinking about when I taught English, so it's nice to see that actually helping me now.
But I think you're noticing what many of us have noticed is that when you study Arabic, all of a sudden you learn all these things about English grammar, because I never studied English grammar very much. And by studying Arabic, it sort of like makes me go back and learn the English stuff. Although it's funny because there are things that I understand in Arabic that I don't even know what it'll say. Oh, this means blah, blah in English. This is the ablative, or this is, some word I don't even know in English. It's like, well, that helps. Thank you very much.
Arun had a good point in the chat that in like, when the Quran talks about the judgment, it often uses, when the Quran talks about the day of judgment, it often uses this perfected cause. Like it's already, it's like, it's happened. These are things that happen. So it has that function. So it's important, like good to note that. All right, and look, Samantha, you had that question about markers. So here, you see this, this is only in the South Asian script. You see this like weird like ending.
Yeah, it looks like we have a heart there.
So what this is trying to, sorry, my cat is like, this is like trying to reconcile the fact that everyone knows that Surah Fatiha is known as the 7 verses, right? So everyone knows that Surah Fatiha has 7 verses, but we're like, the question is like, which 7 verses? If you count with Bismillah, then you have 7 rhyming verses. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Rahman Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, Ihdinas siratal mustaqim, siratal ladzina an'amta alaihim ghayril maghdubi alaihim waladdallin. 7 rhyming verses. Okay. If you say that,
yeah, no, I'm just laughing because it's like, oh no, if we're not counting Bismi, then we're stuck with 6, and then how would that be accurate? So then they have to divide up 1 at the end.
Exactly. So that's what they do. They have this like sort of like pseudo like marker, and then they're saying this la on top, which means, yeah, but don't stop here.
It's an ending, but don't stop here, because we want to keep it being correct and have 7 verses.
Yeah, so it's marked it. So here you see this is a number 5. And then here it marks it as number 6 and ends on number 7. So that's the reason here.
I love that. It's brilliant. And then they might do it. I don't know if there are other verses or other kind of sections of the Holy Quran that are like where that number is so critical, but I could imagine that they would use the same technique.
Yeah.
I think there's just 1 or 2 chapters that do have the Bismillah as part of the verse, and I forget which ones, but I know that's an issue. Yeah. Generally you say it before, but I think there's 1 or 2 where it's considered part of.
Well, there's like, for the rest of it, even like the convention is to, other than Fatiha, Bismillah is not numbered as a numbered verse, other than Fatiha. And Surah Tawbah doesn't have a Bismillah at the beginning of it, but there's a surah that has Bismillah within the verse, within the chapter itself. So it's interesting. Yeah.
So with that logic, does it mean that we wouldn't need to? Would that mean that the ayahs would be having the same counting? So like number 5 ayah in Baqarah would be 5 ayah in Baqarah in different scripts.
In between these 2 scripts, between the yes, with a caveat, because there are other. Initially when the Quran was written, there was this recognition that the verses are where the rhyme is, but there was not this explicit like stating this is where the verse ends. So regionally, there were different conventions as to where a verse ends or a verse begins. So what we're seeing now is the standard, I think, Iraqi or Hafs verse markers. Like regionally in Medina, there was a tradition that, they'd have some differences, like Alif Lam Mim of Surah Baqarah. Is that its own verse? Is that part of the verse after? So sometimes there would be differences in the numbering. But now we have for the most part here, we're seeing the Hafs standard, and across the board, most of the verse numberings are very much the same, except in Fatiha where you have this little difference.
Yeah, and I can see that being important as people are communicating, across regions, like just even how we're communicating now, right? And where things are being come from. So, okay, cool. Thank you. Because I was a little concerned at the beginning when it was saying that things were counted differently. I was thinking, oh, wow.
And you will notice it's way in the weeds and we can't get into it here, but there are different official, there was variation at the time by dialect and region, and it was recognized that there were acceptable variant readings.
Mm-hmm.
And we call that the qira'at, you know, and there's, I don't know, there's different numbers, 7 or 9, I don't know how many there are, but there were different readings. And there are sometimes even minor, you know, differences. You know, the classic one in Fatiha is Maliki Yawmiddin versus Maliki Yawmiddin.
Yeah.
So one reading will have the Malik, the possessor of, and the other would be Malik without an alif, which would mean the king of, or the lord of, or something. You know, very similar meaning. It doesn't really change the meaning, but and both are accepted. And sometimes if you get, usually the version that we are seeing is called Hafs, which is this one tradition. And pretty much that's going to be all the Qur'ans you see. But now and again, there's another one called Warsh that is used in North Africa. And so their numbering will sometimes be different. So there's one teacher I'm with, and he'll say, go to Surah, you know, ayah such and such, and we'll go there, and he's in a different place because he's using a Warsh Quran, and we're using a, you know, I usually, all my apps and everything are all in Hafs, you know, so just so you know, there are those differences, and, you know, minor differences in pronunciation, and it's a different, you know, does it have a long vowel here or not? Those minor things. And then there are even some, you know, some other issues having to do with the collection of the Quran, you know, like, and again, that it's out of my league, just to know that there's minor differences. Like, there's even one not very well accepted opinion, but there is an opinion of, was even Fatiha, was that a dua? Was it a prayer, or was it actually part of the Quran? By vast majority opinion is that it's part of the Quran. But, you know, there are people who would argue that it was just a dua that was, you know, recommended to say that wasn't officially part of the Quran, or the last, you know, that you know, they'll say that these two short verses were actually one, you know, one verse, you know, and they'll be numbered differently. So there these minor differences across the Islamic tradition that are of scholarly interest, but, you know, I don't think we have to worry about them too much.
Yeah, but when I've heard Adnan do when he's done his recitation, which is just spectacular. Adnan, you do it from the Warsh tradition, correct?
Yeah.
Or that pronunciation.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go there, you know, but I do.
Yeah, but I was
absolutely love the Warsh. This is my Warshri. I absolutely love the Warsh. And I was like, okay, for this purpose, I'm going to hamper it down. I'm not going to mention, you know, I'm not going to confuse people, but I will, you know, I love the multiplicity and the different recitations.
I think it's good, even at the beginner level. It's okay to know that there are those minor differences.
Yeah.
We don't have to get into which is right or where it comes from or what it's called, but you know, just to be aware that there are those minor differences, and that's part of the beauty of the Islamic tradition, you know. So yeah, I think Warsh is cool too, although I'm mainly exposed to Hafs, you know, so it's just, you know, historical accident, you know.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for this slight tangent. This is super cool. Sorry, Shaheen, go ahead.
No, I just had a tangential question myself. I was wondering if either of you had heard about Surah 9, the Tawbah Surah not actually being part of the Quran.
Surah 9 not being part of the Quran?
Yeah, that it was kind of added in, but was not really supposed to be part of the Quran. Because it doesn't begin with the Bismillah.
Yeah. Yeah, that may be that may be a modernist hypothesis. Generally, the tradition does hold it that it is definitely part of the Quran, but doesn't have the Bismillah. And the reason for that is debated, but one of the reasons that makes sense to me is that the Quran was ordered with the 7 longest surahs first, but you'll see that Surah 9 is after Surah 8, which is like a medium-sized, not so long surah. So you have 6 long surahs, and then Surah 8, which is a medium-sized surah, and then the 7th, which is Surah 9. And in the tradition, there's this question of whether Surah 9 was its own independent surah or was a continuation of Surah, the beginning of Surah Anfal.
Okay.
And so Anfal, which is out of place, it's a medium surah, but it's put in between right as the preface or like a beginning of Surah, you know, before Surah 9, with the sense that, maybe if it's one entire surah, you start reading Surah Anfal and then Surah 9, and you get the 7th long surah.
Okay, that makes more sense.
But if it's not, it's right after it, and it doesn't have a Bismillah to explicitly break up the order of the the word. So that's my, I have like, that's what I think is, well, that's my opinion as to what makes most sense given the tradition. So yeah, so let's finish this off, but there's still a little bit left.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No worries. This is good. Sirat al-Ladina an'amta alayhim, and then what's this word? This is a
Rain.
Gain.
So it's like a
growling rain.
Ghain, and then ra. Ghayri. And ghayri means other than. And then, so it's not, or like a negation. So the path of those with whom you are pleased, who have, or not. And then here we have the word like ma. And this is, what is this? This is a ayn within it. So again, it's like the ayn, but with a dot over it. Mar. Now we have this letter. Dog. Bi. Alayhim, the same word as before. So this is very important because maghdub is a passive like a construct. So in Arabic you say kataba, he wrote. How do you say it was written? Maktub. What are other options or other like fa'ala, he did this. Maf'ul, it was done, something that was done. Maf'ul. Ma'mul, something that was made. Here we have this word maghdub alayhim. So it's specifically passive. And so here we specifically said who is doing the please, who is being pleased? God. The path of those with whom you are pleased with, right? And amta alayhim. But here it's passive. Not who have no, more like who have no anger upon them. So a lot of the translations say the path of those whom you have blessed, not those you are displeased with. But the actual Arabic doesn't say who is doing the displeasing. Yeah, it has this very passive quality, who have no anger upon them, right? And I think does anyone, I think the Tawheed circle has a very interesting translation of that.
Yeah, I think the one that we use is about those who are not led astray by their own anger rather than God's anger on them.
So that's a possibility, so generally in the interpretation, when it says Maghdubi alayhim, it's like, oh, whose anger? Yeah, it's possibly God's anger, but there could be a possibility of like that ambiguity there. All right. And then here we say wala. Often the la comes in a like, you see this wala just like come up like that as a not when it's continuing in negation. So غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ wala is like and not, or, and then this last word, alif lam wad. So wad is another one of those letters that the lam melds into. Allah, and then this is a extended alif, okay? Abal, and then it doubles up with this lam, Malin. And Malin means those who go astray, right? Why is that? Why is it an extended alif? You see that here, the extended alif. Because normally, grammatically, you would just have a long alif, Malin. But in tajweed, when a long vowel precedes a shadda, that long vowel gets really extended. It gets really extended to really point out that extension. So you say Wallin. Okay. So would anyone want to recite that this last verse?
Can I?
Wonderful. Yeah. Go ahead.
صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Amen.
Ameen. Wonderful. And because it's a prayer, often we do say Ameen, Amen after Fatiha, even though it's not, the Ameen isn't considered part of Fatiha. We do say Ameen. Anyone else want to recite that last verse?
Well, so Shirat Baladina, oh, sorry, Sirat, it's not a Shah, so it's Sirat Baladina Anamanta Alahim Geril Mangtubi Alahim Waladali.
Wonderful.
But it would actually be Garili because I don't think I put the E. Garili. So when I'm looking at right past where the optional break is, so of those who do not go astray, the pronunciation it would be Garil. How do you say that?
Oh, it's here is a ghai, re, and that connects with the next verse. Ghairil maghdub.
Is there a difference between the various elongations, like the fatha, the dagger aleph, and the squiggly over the aleph in Dalin?
So the generally the dagger aleph and the aleph like this, this is often a short aleph, except when it's followed by a long aleph. So that's 2 counts. Sirata, it's just lengthened it double. Okay. Sirata, and the dagger aleph is the same. There's no difference there. Maliki is 2 counts.
Why not have one, and instead of confusing us, there's more than one.
Yeah, it's language is like yeah, it's hard to put it in the box, but yeah. So yeah, that's sort of the reason why the Arabic script, what it does is that it has the double. So in the Uthmani script, you'll see that there is that redundancy. So all the time when it has a 2 length longer one, it has the initial vowel, the sira, and it has the short aleph after it. And that's why there's always that redundancy.
Okay, our recorder has to leave, so we need to.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I just remembered that I have to leave. I have to catch a train, and that means when I leave the meeting, the recording will stop. So maybe we should just stop the recording now anyway, if that's okay.
I think we are done. We just